Right then, I'm going to put a couple of words down here. Office configuration. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is basically nothing more than the way that you set up your computer system at the place of work. And you'll probably notice, if you look very carefully, there's a slight problem. Now, I got this picture from the internet because I'm not an artist and I couldn't draw this, but I'm thinking I see a computer, I see a monitor, I see a keyboard, I see a mouse. I don't see a computer. So maybe we should have had, as you can see, my artistic skills are not so strong, but maybe there should have been a computer box there, put a little CD tray and a power button or so there. So the computer should have been there. And I guess we could have said that in office configuration you might have had something like a flatbed scanner there. But just a couple of things to introduce you to. When it comes to the what word am I looking for? I'm looking for putting down workspace analysis, because legal requirements, that's what I'm looking for. When it comes to the legal requirements of when you put a workspace together for your staff, you're supposed to carry out a workspace analysis, and basically this is just to make sure that what you give them is suitable for the job that you are actually asking them to do. There's no requirements. I mean, for example, you can see here we've got a chair with a 5-point base, and the reason for a 5-point base is that it's actually really quite difficult to tip that chair over. If you've got them at school, try and tip them over. They're quite difficult to do. The reason for wheels on them, that's really to do with the fact that it's not good to get up and down out of your chair. And if this person sitting here, I won't draw the person, but if they wanted to speak to this person here, instead of getting up, and well, I probably would stand up, wouldn't you, and just shout over there, but in fact they could wheel themselves round there. Great fun in the workplace. Don't do it though. We do it at school, don't you? If you've got chairs with wheels on, you race up and down the corridors, you know. Lots of fun. In the place of work, if you do that, you tend to get fired. So my advice is not to do that. But what that's coming to is that's something, I'll introduce it now, that's something to do with the word ergonomics. And that's basically comes back to making the workspace as suitable as possible for your employee. Not a legal requirement. It is a legal requirement that you carry out a workspace analysis, but there's no legal requirement that you give fantastic chairs and fantastic amounts of working space. It's a bit vague, actually, workspace analysis. It's a legal requirement that you carry it out. It doesn't say what there has to be. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is office configuration is that you would expect to find, quite frankly, the keyboard, the monitor, and a decent amount of workspace. This, obviously, as you can work out here, is a printer. That's quite an interesting one, because personally I'm not so sure that I would actually put the printer next to the person. When I just put the word printer down here, I think the key word we're looking at here is amount, and I'll put a question mark there. It really depends on the amount of printing that you do, because the reality is that when I was younger, many years ago, and there were dinosaurs around and everything, they weren't, about 20 years ago, I went to work at a place, and they had printers, but they were dot matrix printer, incredibly noisy, and the printer itself had to be outside another room because it was just too noisy to have it next to your desk. But there is, in fact, there's a school of thought that says there's a potential health risk with laser printers, the toner and the laser, something to do, I think, the word ozone, and apparently that's a gas, isn't it? Something to do with greenhouse gases and ozone layers. You do geography and physics, or whatever that is, chemistry even, I don't know. No, it's not IT. I don't know everything. But the whole point being is that if you're doing lots and lots of printing, it's not advisable to have a laser printer right next to your desk. But in a typical office configuration, you'd have one there. If you're doing a minimal amount of printing, you want your printer next to you, wouldn't you? Rather than have to wheel yourself off to a mystery location in the building to go and collect your printouts. Not efficient use of your time. So that's a typical office configuration. Let's think about situations where work is not so typical. And what I want to look at is, I just want to have a quick look at the disabled user. The previous screen we showed a typical office configuration, but that's no good, for example, if your user, your employee, is, well, in this particular case, blind. And what we can see over here is a Braille keyboard. It's a standard keyboard here, but it has a little Braille reader, which enables well, blind people to be able to do sort of, I'm sort of getting nervous about saying meaningful work like blind people couldn't. I'm trying not to sort of get in trouble here, if you like, for saying the wrong thing. But the whole point is that the blind people have specialized keyboards. And if we have a look at somebody, this is what we call here, I'll just put it over here now, this is what we call a foot mouse. And the foot mouse is useful for those people that either, well, basically it's probably going to be some amputees or people that thalidomide who don't have use of upper limbs. The foot mouse enables them to control the cursor in the way that you would do with your hand, and you can see using their feet, they've got one foot there, isn't it? We can move it around and control the key, and then this one will carry out various actions of the buttons that you're used to pressing with your sort of left or right hand. Your fingers, you press with your fingers, not with your hand, unless you're very, very clumsy. Other types of things that we might want to consider, and this obviously now is getting to the point where we're looking at the most extremely sort of disabled of users. This is a puff suck switch, which really is not much to explain. I suppose it's really in the title, at puff and suck. The whole point being is that the most disabled users are able to give communication, or instructions I should say, to the computer by simply puffing and sucking through the little tube. Once again, I've got a white pen here, so I can't really highlight it very well, but you can see, I think it's fairly obvious that that young lady there has a tube which she uses to puff and suck onto, which enables her to give instructions to the computer. And finally, in this particular section, something which at the moment is for disabled users, but personally I think is going to be the way of the future. And you can kind of flip it around two ways actually here. I'm going to put down here speech to text. The reason for this program is called Dragon. It's called, it's called Dragon Naturally Speaking, and it's the best, or the most well, so it is the best really, the most well used of all sort of voice input commands that then appears as text on the screen. Apple are doing it with Siri on their phones. You can give voice commands. Indeed, you can, in Microsoft itself, you can actually train the computer by reading out passages to recognize your voice. And the reality is that whilst this perhaps doesn't work so well with regional dialects, someone like myself who speaks the Queen's English and has lost his Welsh accent from when he was a child, someone like me, I speak too fast. There's no doubt about that. I'm doing it far too fast now, isn't it? That was a proof point. But I think in the future, and I think with the future, I do mean actually within 10 years, the keyboard will probably disappear, and you'll find that if you want to put text into a computer, you will probably just speak it. So that's speech to text. The flip side of that is actually for the disabled user, text to speech. And what we mean by that is a disabled user can particularly if you've got perhaps poor eyesight, might be able to highlight a section of text on a website, and then a text-to-speech program would then verbally return that to them through the headphones. So if someone's got poor vision, they can highlight an area, a block of text, and it will read it out loud to them. So that's the flip side. So you've got speech-to-text and text to speech, and this particular section was just sort of things that you'd have to put in place in the office when you're considering those users who have disabilities. But we don't all work in the office. No. Far more of us nowadays. A lovely picture, isn't it? This man is making his daughter her breakfast, and he's very busy working. He's a busy man. But the whole point is that you may have heard this expression before, teleworking. I'm not going to go into great depth about how it particularly works and what the advantages and disadvantages are. But the whole point is, if you're the employer of this particular man here, and you want to get the most out of them, then give them the ability for telework. Is nothing more than work from home. Okay, I do these screencasts. I'm actually doing them at home because my school have given me the equipment to be able to do it. and then I sell it to other schools as well, which is a bit naughty, I suppose, in some ways. But the whole point is, if you want someone to work from home, what do you have to give them? Well, quite clearly, you're going to have to give them some form of computer. In this particular case, you can see this guy has got a laptop. Now, this is a mobile phone. Yeah. But let's just assume for a moment it's an internet phone. And the whole point being is that, well, it can actually, I mean, to be honest with you, you could replace this with I'll draw a little headset. There we go. And little headset. Woo, that's round there. Another ear bit round there. The whole point is that what I'm trying to get at here is that you could give them a headset. And as a result of that, they could Skype, make an internet, Skype is a brand name of course, VoIP, voice over internet protocol. But the whole point being is that you can make telephone calls via your broadband connection, and the reason being, if you Skype from one place to somebody else that has Skype installed, to you as an employer, that's a free phone call. So that's one of the things that you want to give your employees, because it will enable them to actually ring in and talk to the office if they have if they have their computer and they've got Skype on there and they've got a headset. Indeed, if they wanted, then have, for example, the headset could be used. Then they might also want to get involved in video conferencing. Is something they might do. And of course, that laptop has got, well, it's got some form of speaker in there, not particularly great speakers, but you might want to invest in a separate set of speakers to improve the quality of your audio. There's one thing that we need that we haven't actually, but I've sort of introduced the concept. You give them the hardware, but also what you're going to need to do is, that's especially broad. You're going to have to pay. Well, that's an interesting one. Do you have to pay? My school don't pay for my home broadband connection. I wish they would do. That'd be fantastic. It would save me about £20 a month or so. But the employee, if they're going to work from home, they're going to have a broadband connection as well. So if you're an employer and you want to get the most out of your employees, you may well have to cough up for the computer, the headset, the speakers, and a broadband connection. And of course, if you can do video conferencing, I forgot one, didn't I? Because maybe it's inbuilt, maybe just in the front there. Can't see it because it's around the other side. But you're going to need yourself some form of webcam. But let's be honest about it. A laptop, 250 quid. A headset, well, the ones I'm wearing right now were £3.85. A webcam, you can pick them up off the internet for like a £5. Speakers, 10 quid. Broadband connection, well, hopefully your employees got that already and they won't ask you to pay for it. It's not a lot, is it? A couple of £100, and you can get your employee working from home. And even if they're off sick, you can say, yes, you're off sick, but we can still get you to work, and we want you on a webcam to see if you really do look sick. That's the future. Plenty of you lot, when you get to your 20s and you finish your degrees, you'll be doing a lot of work from home. I do it, and lots of other teachers I know do it, and lots of people that I know that aren't teachers do it, accountants and lawyers. Everyone works from home as well nowadays. You can't get away from it. Indeed, one of the things, I'll just incorporate it at the bottom, is your mobile phone. Because the reality is, I put on the move. Your employer can make you work, at home, and they can even, with your 3G or 4G connections in the future, they can have you working on the way to work or on the way home from work. There's no escaping it. We live in a very different world nowadays. There you go, quick recap. Configurations. You can work in the office. If you do work in the office and you've got disabled users, you can need to provide different types of equipment for them to be able to work. And if you really want your employees to work as hard as possible, make them work at home and make them work on the move, but give them the kit to enable them to do so.